Getting a first pick in the draft is greeted by a lot of fanfare within the franchise and its fan base. But that's only half the job. The other half is not messing up and choosing a bust, such as Kwame Brown or Anthony Bennett. In this video, we'll talk about the franchises who made the right choice and who didn't mess up their top selection. Here are the best number 1 picks in NBA history. Number 10. Allen Iverson. In the battle of two great players who never won a title, we selected Allen Iverson as the last member of this list before Patrick Ewing. AI was not necessarily a better player than Ewing, nor does he have a better resume on the court, but his impact on the court was much bigger, and he is, to this day, one of the most popular players who ever played. Allen the Answer Iverson was selected first in the stacked 1996 draft, which included Kobe Bryant, Steve Nash, Ray Allen, Antoine Walker, and Stephon Marbury. The Answer was only 6 feet tall, which was by no means destined to dominate the league, but no one counted on his insane speed, killer mentality, explosive first step, and tons of charisma. Nobody could stay in front of Iverson off the dribble, and in his prime, he was arguably the most exciting player in the NBA. He led the league in scoring 4 times, and in 2001, he won the MVP award and led the Sixers to the NBA Finals with one of the most legendary playoff runs in NBA history. AI never won the title, but he was the people's champ, and his influence on the league is still felt today. Number 9. Elgin Baylor. I'm far too young to have watched Elgin Baylor play basketball, but those who did watch him usually talk in superlatives. And some players, like Charles Barkley, say that Baylor is among the 5 best players who ever played. Elgin was selected with the first pick in 1958 by the Lakers, who still played in Minneapolis at the time. He didn't just convincingly win Rookie of the Year award and averaged 24.9 points, 15 rebounds, and 4.1 assists per game. He immediately proved to be one of the league's best players. In the next 12 years, Baylor, together with Jerry West, would push the Lakers to 8 NBA Finals and lose each and every one of them. The Celtics, led by Bill Russell, were to blame for 7 of those finals losses and were by far the best team in the league at the time. Strong and athletic, standing at 6'5" and 225 pounds, Baylor was the most spectacular player who played in the NBA in the 60s outside of Wilt Chamberlain. Elgin averaged 27.4 points and 13.5 rebounds during his 14-year career with the Lakers, and his 61 points in a playoff game is the second best scoring performance ever, behind Jordan's 63 in the Garden against the Celtics. Number 8. Oscar Robertson. Oscar Robertson was selected with the territorial pick in the 1960 NBA Draft, in front of Jerry West and 3 other Hall of Fame players. The Big O was a complete player, and he could do anything on the court. He could score and assist with ease, and although he was a point guard, at 6'5", he was tall and athletic enough to dominate the boards. Oscar ended his NBA career with an average of 25.7 points, 7.5 rebounds, and 9.5 assists. To be fair, we have to say that those numbers are inflated due to the insane number of possessions in the 60s. Still, nobody can take away 181 triple-doubles he had in his career, which still leads the NBA. And his triple-double season, which was believed to be the record that will never be broken until Russell Westbrook did it in 2016. Oscar could have played any position and was selected to the first All-NBA team throughout the 60s. But he couldn't get over the hump and win in the playoffs until he was traded to Milwaukee. There, he was the perfect Robin to Kareem's Batman, and they won the title in their first season together. Number 7. David Robinson. Robinson was the first pick in the 1987 NBA Draft, and we can safely say he was the best player in the draft that included Scottie Pippen, Reggie Miller, and Mark Jackson. Prime David Robinson was an agile 7-footer with the body of a Greek god, and he had no weaknesses in his game. Before he was slowed down by injuries in his first 6 NBA seasons, he won awards for Rookie of the Year, MVP, and Defensive Player of the Year, together with rebounding and scoring titles, 6 All-Star and All-NBA selections. Some people unjustly don't mention him among the best centers ever because he never won without Tim Duncan, and because he lost some playoff series in a memorable fashion, namely against Barkley in '93 and Olajuwon in '95. And even though there is some truth to the narrative that Robinson never led a team to a significant playoff success as the first option, it's also true that the Admiral lifted them from the pool of mediocrity they were swimming in, and that he usually lost to stacked Western teams in the 90s. Number 6. Hakeem Olajuwon. Olajuwon was born and raised in Nigeria, and he started playing sports as a goalkeeper in football, and he only discovered basketball at the age of 15. 4 years later, he moved to America and the University of Houston, where he would play alongside Clyde Drexler and be tutored by Moses Malone. Olajuwon was then selected first overall by the Rockets in the draft that had Michael Jordan, Charles Barkley, and John Stockton, who were all first-ballot Hall of Famers and some of the greatest players who ever played. However, nobody blamed Houston for selecting the Dream over Jordan, because Hakeem was just that good of a player, and at the time, dominant centers were selected over guards anyhow. According to many, Olajuwon was the most complete center of all time, and he led the Rockets to 2 back-to-back titles in '94 and '95. Hakeem had it all: a smooth mid-range jumper, an incredible blocking ability, and the best post-up moves of all time. He was a guard in a center's body, and that's why he was so unstoppable. When asked about his top 5 players of all time, Michael Jordan said Olajuwon would be his center, and that should tell you enough about how good Hakeem really was. Number 5. Shaquille O'Neal. Shaq was another player where there was little to no doubt that he would be the first overall pick in the NBA draft. In 1992, Shaq was selected first before Alonzo Mourning and Christian Laettner, who both had more successful college careers, but it was clear they weren't as talented as Shaq. O'Neal quickly proved he belonged in the league and became an all-star as a rookie. In his 3rd season, he was the NBA scoring champion and led the Magic to the 1995 NBA Finals. During his time with the Lakers, he became the most dominant player in the league, and at his peak, he was the most dominant human who ever ran on NBA hardwood. From 2000 to 2002, Shaq was a monster, and double or triple teams couldn't contain him at times. If he trained more and ate less, he could have preserved his body in his later years. But Shaq wanted to do it his way and have fun, and I don't blame him. There's only a handful of players who had better careers than him, and nobody had more fun than Shaq, so it's hard to say anything bad about the guy. Number 4. Tim Duncan. Tim Duncan was the first overall pick in the 1997 NBA Draft. He was the only player the Spurs ever tanked for. Agents begged him to come to the NBA even sooner, but to no avail. Timmy made a promise to his late mother that he would graduate from college, and there was nothing anybody could say to change his mind, even though it was apparent he was the best college player even after his freshman year, and he could have been the first pick a few years before. Once he got to the league, it was obvious that the Spurs made the right move, and that the kid from the Caribbean is an all-time talent. He was the Finals MVP in only his 2nd year, after which Greg Popovich told to Jeff Van Gundy, the coach of the Knicks who the Spurs defeated in the Finals, "Hey, don't feel bad. I've had Tim Duncan, and you didn't." Duncan was probably the most boring NBA superstar that ever was, other than his protege, Kawhi Leonard. He didn't care about winning popularity contests. He cared about winning championships. With Duncan on the team, the Spurs never missed the playoffs and never won less than 60% of their games in the regular season. On his resume, Timmy has 5 NBA rings, 2 MVPs, 15 All-NBA and All-Defensive selections, and many more accolades. In short, Tim Duncan is the best power forward who ever played. Number 3. Magic Johnson. Many people will say that Jerry West is the best general manager in NBA history. However, when he got the Lakers job, Jerry West almost made the biggest mistake in his GM career. The 1979 draft offered several great young players, and the Lakers had the first pick. It seemed certain that they would grab the acclaimed tall playmaker named Earvin Johnson, who was becoming increasingly accustomed to the nickname Magic. But West had a different idea. He strongly lobbied to draft Sidney Moncrief, a great shooter from the University of Arkansas. West figured that he already had a great point guard in Norm Nixon, who averaged 17 points and 9 assists in 1978, and had great chemistry with Kareem. Luckily for him and the Lakers, the cunning owner Jerry Buss outvoted West and saved him from making a big mistake. Buss insisted on Magic, seeing in him much more than the playmaker, which ultimately proved to be a historic move. While Sidney Moncrief had a very good career with the Milwaukee Bucks, with 5 All-Star selections and 2 Defensive Player of the Year awards, he was no Magic. It's hard to imagine what the league would look like today if it weren't for those Showtime Lakers powered by Magic Johnson, who is without a doubt the greatest point guard ever. Number 2. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Lou Alcindor was born in New York in 1947, and even though he gravitated towards books and music, basketball became a logical choice when he began to grow like mushrooms after the rain. At the age of 14, he had already reached 6'8". In high school, he led his team to 3 state championships, becoming a well-known athlete across America as a teenager. He broke various records playing for UCLA in college, winning 3 titles with coach John Wooden, and became the hottest commodity for NBA teams. The Milwaukee Bucks won the coin flip that secured them the #1 pick, and they had no doubt who they would select. Alcindor replicated his dominance from high school and college to the NBA. He won the Rookie of the Year and averaged 28.8 points and 14.5 rebounds, and the Bucks improved their record by 29 wins from the previous season. Next year, with the addition of Oscar Robinson, Lou Alcindor won Milwaukee their first and only NBA championship, which would also be the last game under his birth name. Kareem added 5 more titles to his impressive resume, and by the time he retired in 1989, he was the best scorer of all time, the best shot blocker, the player with the most MVP awards, and most All-Star appearances. By the sheer number of accomplishments, any GOAT debate shouldn't be had without mentioning Jabbar's name. Number 1. LeBron James. If you watched any game of LeBron James in high school, it was instantly clear that LeBron was not an ordinary kid. He was an unbelievable athlete for such a young age, paired with a basketball IQ that comes along every couple of generations. Soon, pictures of the 16-year-old kid from Akron flooded the front pages of all the relevant sports mags: Slam, Sports Illustrated, ESPN, and they all said the same thing: he's the future #1 pick in the draft. When the time came, they were all right, and fate would have it that he would get drafted first overall just across the town where he grew up. Cleveland finally had sports hope, and LeBron James was the chosen one. LeBron quickly showed that they didn't make a mistake with a high school kid, even exceeding the hype. He dragged one of the worst teams to the finals in 2007 and displayed heroic performances in 2008 and 2009, only to come up short. LeBron's decision in 2010 was logical, and in retrospective, it was the correct one. In Miami, he became a better post player and a better shooter, and learned what it takes to win it all. In 2014, he returned home with a championship pedigree and delivered on his promise. Cleveland finally had a champion in a major sport after a 52-year drought, all thanks to LeBron. King James's legacy is already untouchable as one of the best players to ever play, but he's still going strong at the age of 35 and still trying to catch that ghost from Chicago.